So we talked a little bit about this over the phone, like the difference between single payer universal health care and what right now everybody seems to be fighting for, which is the Affordable Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you can explain it a little, just so the people that do view this show will get a sense or an idea of how single payer universal health care is so much better than
Well,
the ACA?
this has been part of our fight ever since the ACA was passed. The problem with it is that it was largely written by insurance company people who are obviously going to protect their own interests first. And as long as they're in the picture, profit will be their main interest. They don't really have that much to do with actual care except for denying it in order to save money. Yes, they do cover people that haven't had insurance before, but the restrictions of the ACA in general, the narrow networks, the prior authorizations, the things that are covered and aren't covered, and things that count towards your deductible and don't count towards your deductible, co-payments, co-insurance, all of that ends up costing the individual patient. And under National Improved Medicare for All, or single payer, there are no premiums, there are no deductibles, there are no co-pays. You have a card given to your parents when you're born, and whenever you need medical care, you go to the doctor you choose, or your parents choose if you're little, and the hospital that's the nearest and the most efficient, and you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm having a heart attack and I don't have prior authorization for an ambulance.
Right.
You get the care you need because it all comes out of a universal fund. Everybody pays in, everybody gets out of it. And a lot of people, I believe uniquely in this country, feel like, well, I shouldn't have to pay for somebody else's health care. But what they don't realize is that they're already paying for it. People who have no access at all, except the emergency room, are written off due to taxpayer money, subsidizing the hospitals. And if they had access to a doctor when their disease or condition or injury was easily treatable, it would cost way less than waiting until the cancer has spread throughout their whole body, or their broken leg has now got to be amputated, or the scenarios are endless. It, like many things in our political society, is a matter of foresight. And we have no foresight in this country. We can't see past the moment that we're in and maybe the moment following. But we don't see 5 years down the road, or like when they passed the ACA, very few people understood that it wasn't going to be implemented the way it was written. And of course, in the time it took to get it implemented to the point where it is now, and even now it's not complete, changes were made that made it less beneficial for the patient and more costly. So there are many ways in which National Improved Medicare for All, or NEMA as we like to call it, in many ways in which it's better, more cost-effective, more efficient. And for those who feel like it's a government takeover of healthcare, the fact is that it can be run as a semi autonomous utility. You know, it's a matter of one payer. The doctor sends the bill to the government pays the bill. There are no fights every day to get your medical care covered. You don't have the added stress on top of your disease or your injury.
Exactly, when you don't need more stress and more financial stress.
It becomes a matter of healing. So we're hoping to have a lot of different business people come to the library. We're in the Carnegie Room on October 4th at 5:30, and a wonderful local organic farm, Willow City Farm, is going to team up with Chef Denise Perry, who will cater little finger foods for us with the products from Willow City: meat, cheese, eggs. I'm sure there will be some vegetables for the veggies. But I think it's going to be a really good evening, and we'll have a panel discussion afterwards. Right now, I'll be on it, and congressional candidate David Gill will be there. We're also looking for some business people from Springfield who have dealt with the insurance problem and would like to tell their story. So if you're a business person, put it on your calendar. We'll be sending out little notices on our Facebook page and on our website. So thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. It eliminates the middleman. That's simple. In fact, I think that's why it's such a good system. It's simple. Your taxes go to your doctor. Your taxes go to your health care. We've got insurance companies, they're for-profit, their CEOs make multi-million-dollar salaries. I don't know if you know the highest salary there is. I mean, they make multi-million-dollar salaries every year. So if you're thinking, okay, this is where some of our money's going for the overhead and all the paperwork and the approvals and having to get pre-approved and the doctors struggle to get paid, all that costs money. And I really think they should call it simple payer healthcare instead of single payer healthcare, because it's much simpler.
It is.
Simple for older people to understand and to deal with when they're sick, like you said, and they don't need the stress. So
well, all you have to do is look at the actual legislation. The ACA is 4,000 pages and growing. HR 676, the Expanded and Improved Medicare for All Act, is 34 pages. And unlike most legislative language, anyone can read it and understand it. like you said, simple and comprehensive at the same time. It's like it lays out everything that's covered, which is more than what's covered under the ACA or private insurance. Dental, vision, mental health care, physical rehab, addiction services, all of that is covered. The only thing that's not covered is elective cosmetic surgery. Your boob job will not be covered. And any experimental unproven treatment. There will be questions about that. But
And that's pretty much how it is in Europe and other countries
Yeah.
that have it set up. And not that we couldn't set ours up a little different, whatever works best, but I think that sounds good. I mean, why wouldn't everything be covered? And what about, I think in Europe they do pay some for medications extra, don't they?
Well, it depends on the country. But the thing about it is that if we go to a single payer system, that means that everybody in the country becomes this huge purchasing block. So when the government goes to the pharma companies to negotiate prices, it's not just for Medicare or just for CHIP or just for the VA. It's for everybody. And there's really no other outlet except other countries for them to make obscene profits on. So the cost is going to be more realistic based on their actual research and development costs as opposed to the inflated ones we see today. And also, the negotiating power is ours, not theirs. So as a business perspective, and our so-called president likes to identify himself as a deal maker. Well, there can be no better deal than to have all the negotiating power on your side and to really say, okay, this is what we will pay. And see that they really don't have a choice,
It's unsustainable. The
It
system we
is.
have is unsustainable. I mean, when I was campaigning for Bernie Sanders, he put out there, it saves the average family of four $4,000 a year. You don't need to know any more than that.
Right.
I mean, if you consider the insurance premiums that we're paying right now into insurance companies, it will save the average family of four $4,000 a year.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be a doctor. You don't need to be an economist. You don't need to be, have a degree in accounting to know that is all you really need to know. I
Right.
mean, because we can put that money back into the economy, purchasing other things, cars, a college education.
Covering other people for healthcare.
Yeah, right.
It's like it makes so much sense, but I also think that a uniquely American trait is that we immediately jump to, that sounds too good to be true, so it must not be true. Where's the catch? And so people don't think, unless they've lived in Canada or France or England, they don't think that it's possible. And maybe some of them don't even think they deserve it. But I do think we need to shift our mentality from, this is way too much for us, it'll never happen here, to every other developed nation in the world has some version of health care for all its people.
Yeah.
Why should we not? And really, the only thing that is standing in our way is the will to do it.
Well, I think a lot of it is the media, and it
Yes.
will put out there that people are paying for everyone else. You're paying for someone else when we turn to this horrible system that really, it's the insurance lobbyists that keep this going with Congress and not, you know, they're afraid they won't be reelected
Right.
if they try to change the system. But it's getting to the point where enough people know about single payer, they just might not be reelected if they don't bring up
Right.
single payer
And that's the tipping point.
and vote for it.
Yeah, if we get to the point where we are still standing up in town halls and yelling at them and not being happy with them and saying, I'm not voting for you anymore.
But
I
most
voted-"
people this time around were yelling at them to save the Affordable Care Act.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yes, and that was a waste of time, but I'm really hoping that when they get back from the recess in August that Bernie's bill will be introduced.
Right.
It will be a real single-payer bill, and then we can really focus on getting the Senate to vote for it, or at least not vote it down like they did in the House. The House responded to people pressure, and I think the Republicans that stood up and said, no, I have too many constituents who are on Medicaid, or I have too many elderly constituents in my district, and that this would hurt them. Those Republicans are the ones that are going to get reelected. The ones who are like, oh, everybody has to have more skin in the game. Well, I'm sorry, but some of us have been skinned. We have no more to give.
Right.
And they don't get that. You know, they're so out of touch with the people they're supposed to represent that they don't understand why we don't have any more. It's been all taken from us, and in many different ways. You know, you look at the school bill here and the wage question and all the environmental stuff that's been destroyed and will now get even worse. It's like from every corner they're grabbing health and happiness away from us. And those are the people that need to go. They obviously do not have the best interests of their constituents at heart. So,
I mean, yeah, it's kind of one of those things when, I mean, Jimmy Carter calls it an oligarchy. I like a corporatocracy because
Yeah.
it's a little more definitive, and that's just it. Like now we have fracking, we're going to have poison groundwater, things that make people sick, and then at the same time, under a corporatocracy, you have a system that doesn't heal people when it's the same system making them sick, and then you're denied health care once you get sick.
Yeah.
And so, but Bernie's single-payer universal health care was supposed to have been introduced last month. So is there a plan, like a date set up for the
There's
month of
not a
August?
certain date, and I think, you know, that he's been trying to get to a point where he knew that he would have a certain amount of support within the Senate. The fact that Chuck Schumer went on the Sunday show and said single payer out loud is a really good sign. And we know that progressives like Elizabeth Warren and Keith Ellison and Tulsi Gabbard, although I believe she needs some more education on it, all of those people are going to be on his side. The ones we have to worry about are the corporate establishment, the Clinton people and the DNC, because they're still ignoring the fact that he's the most popular politician in the country.
Yeah.
And as long as they do that, you know, they're going to keep their people toeing the line, which, you know, I really hope that some of them get to the point where they just grow a spine and say, I can't do this anymore. I'm just sick of it, and I know what's right, and I'm going to do what's right. I mean, Clara McCaskill from Missouri, she should be one of those people. But she's been so scared of being primaried that she's going to get primaried. You know, it's like you said, they're going to be the ones that are not reelected. And then maybe the light bulb will go on a little too late, but who knows? I can't believe that so many of them seem to be totally oblivious to the reality of what's going on, you know, on the street.
So I know a lot of right-wing people, and the first thing they'll say is, oh, Canada, they have to wait in line forever, and a lot of those people die trying to get health care because their waiting lines are so long. What do you tell people like that?
Well, I first of all would recommend that they watch the healthcare movie. But my usual knee-jerk response is, oh, and you don't wait here?
Right.
Because I have to wait 6 weeks to see my primary care doctor.
Yeah.
In Canada, if you have an emergency, you are seen right away.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something that is either not emergent or ongoing, then you have the same kind of wait times that we have here.
Yeah, and I know what you're talking about. I saw that documentary too, and it's a documentary, and you can probably buy it online, and it's just simply called Healthcare. Right?
The healthcare movie.
The Healthcare movie. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
It's narrated by Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, right.
And he's a Canadian citizen as well as an American. And it chronicles the history between the 40s, when we were both countries were sort of the same, to today, when, well, actually to 2009 when it first came out, to their single payer system and our mess. And it's a really good way to view it historically, because you see exactly where we split our ways.
Right.
And how easily we could have just continued the way they did and had our own single payer system.
Right. And if I remember right, there was a girl who went up there and she just biked around and asked people, would you like to change systems with us? Do you want the United States healthcare system, and we'll take yours? And they didn't say, oh no, we'll keep it, we like ours, it's a little better for this reason or that reason. I mean, this actually caused everyone to laugh.
Yes.
Out loud. That's how bad our system is.
Yes, indeed.
That it's laughable.
It is.
And that's what I remember the most about that. It's been quite a few years since I've seen that.
Yes, and there's this one scene where she was interviewing people about how they felt about their tax money going to pay for everyone else's health care. And there's this guy who's, you know, big and ruddy and outdoorsy, who says, well, of course I want my taxes to go to that. Who wouldn't? And I think, oh, just look south.
Yeah. Well, if not for that, for what? I mean, what people need to know are our tax dollars go for perpetual war, ongoing, to kill and be killed for the profits of the elite few, where we go in and overturn democratic elected leaders and leaders about ready to become independent of the banking systems. And I don't think people realize that we're being screwed. It's not their money, it's our money. It should be used for us.
Yes.
For our road schools, for our health care.
I wish that somebody would propose a bill that allows us, when we pay our taxes, to say where we want it to go.
Yeah.
If
And
we
it
did
wouldn't be for
that,
war for
I
most people.
suspect the military budget would be way smaller than it is.
Because we have no business over there in any of these wars.
Yeah.
And Obama even said if we hadn't put all that money into the Iraq war, we could have converted this whole country to alternative energy.
Yeah.
100%. We'd be better off than Germany right now in that
Right.
way. I wanted to say, I was watching Tom Hartman the other day, and he announced that there is a large waiting list as far as people being concerned about waiting for health care. Like, he was referred 3 times. He needed some kind of surgery where he was actually in pain.
Mhm.
And from the time it started and all the referrals he had to go through, he didn't get the surgery till like 6 months later.
Yeah.
And this was something where he was in pain that whole time, trying to do his talk show. And then my dad, he had a shoe that it had gotten damaged somehow, and this was a shoe for a foot that had a toe amputated because he's a diabetic, and it has another toe that was getting diabetic gangrene. And I think more than 6 months went by because they had to do all this paperwork and everything wasn't just so, and for it to be covered, and then they never did get it right. They ended up giving him the shoe illegally, my dad said, before
Wow.
they even got the paperwork that needed to be done to give it to him for it to be covered. They just ended up giving it to him because they realized how ridiculous it was.
Well,
And
good
it was
for them
making
that they
his
gave
toe,
it to him.
yeah, it was making his toe worse that whole time.
Yeah.
So in ways, I think it's worse weight-wise. Do you agree with
Yes,
that?
I do.
People you know and stories you've heard. I mean, if someone had a wound on their toe in Canada, they would get that shoe right away, wouldn't
Yeah.
they? That would count as one of the things they would get right away.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well,
I should mention the event that's coming up in October. We're going to invite Springfield area business folks to come to a screening of the movie Fix It, which was made by a Pennsylvania businessman. He owns a framing company, and he was really up against the challenge of how he was going to pay for his employees' health care. And he started to do some research and realized that, you know, the system that we have now was just impossible for him to afford. So he made this documentary, and it's really a wonderful tool to educate business people about the facts about single payer.
And you're going to be famous. Look at your show, baby. Come on over to this purse. Ooh. There's Sunday, and there's Monday, there's Tuesday, and there's Wednesday, there's Thursday, and there's Friday, and then there's Saturday. Days of the week. Days of the week. Days of the week. You're driving yellow. You're driving yellow.